Hey everyone, I'm Alan Thrall here at Untamed Strength Gym in Sacramento, California, out here in the junkyard or strongman yard. Untamed Strength recently celebrated its 12-year birthday. Happy birthday to Untamed Strength. So I wanted to make this video about equipment. I'm going to give you 5 pieces of equipment that every gym should have, or maybe 5 pieces of equipment that will help you stand out among other corporate, commercial, Globo type gyms. And if you're not a gym owner in charge of purchasing equipment, maybe 5 things to look for. If you're in the market for looking for a new gym, check and see if your gym has these 5 pieces of equipment. Now, all 5 of these pieces of equipment are practical suggestions, and they've been the most popular with Untamed Strength's growth. I'm not going to suggest that you go out and purchase a $5,000 bicep machine or a spaceship looking leg press just because it's unique. Yes, it's unique and other gyms might not have that, but it's just not very practical. I mean, if I think about it, I am probably the only gym within a 200-mile radius that has a 420-pound Atlas stone. So it's unique, but it's not very practical. Not many people are looking for that, unless you specifically want to be a strongman gym. So again, these 5 pieces of equipment are very popular, have been very popular in Untamed Strength, but they're just not that common in commercial gyms. And if you want to stand out, you have to be unique in some way. You can't go toe-to-toe, dollar for dollar with these Globo gyms and try to just mimic them and purchase every piece of equipment that they have. You got to stand out in some way. Equipment number 1, squat racks. I assume if you're watching this video or you watch any of my videos, you are at least slightly interested in strength training. You might not be a competitive power lifter or a strongman competitor, but you like barbell training, general strength training, and you are the type of person that I want to attract to my facility. And for that reason, squat racks have to be the backbone of my gym. At Untamed Strength, I've got over, I think, or about 25 places to squat. So some sort of squat rack variation, whether it's a power rack, combo rack, mono lift, a half rack, a couple of squat stands, about 25 places to squat. I have had more people than I know sign up at Untamed Strength simply because of the amount of squat racks. They're not necessarily looking for powerlifting equipment. They're not looking for strongman equipment. They just need a gym that has plenty of racks to go around. They're tired of going to their commercial gym, which might be a huge facility, but it only has, 2, 3, or 4 squat racks. So they either have to fight for a squat rack when they go in there. They have to gamble if what time they're going to go to the gym. I don't know if it's going to be too busy. I don't know if I'm going to get a squat rack. If they do find a squat rack, they don't have to rush over to it and get their workout done really quick. They don't feel guilty about sitting down in between sets. You don't have to worry about that at Untamed Strength. There's always going to be a rack available no matter what time you come, and I intended for it to be that way. You don't have to feel bad about sitting down between sets. We all get it. You can take 90 minutes to do a squat workout and an overhead press workout in the same rack. It's not a big deal. Nobody's going to say, "Are you done? Why are you sitting there resting? Are you almost done? Can I work in with you?" I think a lot of this popularity or growth of barbell training and strength training has been in part due to the rise of CrossFit, I think. But if I was to give credit where credit is due, I think that Mark Rippetoe has been and is the most influential barbell coach, at least in the past couple of decades. I think that he has influenced who knows how many people to lift a barbell or to pick up a barbell for the first time. When I sign a new member up for the gym, I like to ask them how they heard about the gym. And I've heard, more times than I can count, a similar story of, I realized that I need to get a little bit stronger, or I realized that I'm getting older, fatter, weaker, and I just needed to do some strength training. So I Googled something to do with strength training and I found Starting Strength, or I found RIP. And then that led them to looking for a gym that had, just type in barbells, strength training, barbell training, gym in my area, and Untamed Strength will pop up. So as much as we like to troll and tease Rip, I think that he has brought this gym a lot of members. And so that has been a reason for the rise in popularity in squat racks and deadlift platforms and barbells. But anyways, let me reel it back in here. There's a reason why I put strength in the name of my gym, but if you care about strength, look for a gym with a lot of squat racks. Squat racks are much less expensive than machines. They are much more durable. They require no maintenance. There's no moving parts to it. And they're much more versatile. You can squat, do squat variations, pin squats. You can bench, do pin bench. You can do pull-ups. You can do rack pulls. you can do RDLs, you can do pull-ups. Curls?
For the last time, anything you put on that prompter, Burgundy will read.
Number 2, barbells. I promise I'm gonna list some other ones. These first 2 are kind of like an easy softball pitches, but barbells. A good squat rack without a good barbell is just an expensive pull-up bar. If squat racks are the backbone of my gym, barbells are the heartbeat. I have never had someone sign up for a gym membership because I have a lateral raised deltoid machine, but people have signed up simply because of good barbells. And when I say good barbell, I'm not talking about the most expensive barbell the money can buy, although, you know, having something like Eleiko bars, $1,000 barbells, that will attract high-level powerlifters or weightlifters. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a barbell with, honestly, some bushings or bearings, not a piece of plastic on the sleeve, and not a hex bolt on the end. Also, a good barbell has good knurling. Good knurling means you can feel the difference in a bar that has good knurling and doesn't. On some commercial gym bars or cheap bars, it's just a smooth, shiny bar. The knurling is like an afterthought. You don't need a cheese grater aggressive knurling. You just need something that has pretty decent knurling that your hands can stick to. You should never feel like the bar is sliding out of your hands because it's so slippery. And you should never feel like it's sliding off your back because it's too slippery. Also, a good barbell will hold its shape. Cheap barbells, over time, if they're used with enough weight, they're just gonna tend to bend and hold that shape. A good barbell will flex and bend, but it'll retain its shape. 300 bucks seems to be the price point for a good barbell. You can get a great barbell, as good as you need for 300 bucks. If you go below 200, you're significantly reducing or sacrificing quality for price. If you go above 300 to like 500, it's a little bit better, but the difference between 100 to 300 is huge. The difference between 300 to 500 is less. And then if you go beyond that, like 300 up to 1,000 or more, it's just a marginal difference that really most people can't even tell. Unless you're doing clean and jerks with, you know, like 350 pounds, you're not gonna notice the difference between a $1,000 barbell. Some people like it just for the name. They just are attached to equipment, and so they just want the brand name of Eleiko. They want to see that red sticker on the bar. But for the most part, I think that outfitting your gym with a whole bunch of $1,000 bars, it's cool if you want to. I wish I could. But I think it's a good way to keep your butthole puckered 24/7 because you're just worried that one of the members is going to do something stupid with your expensive barbells. So $300 seems to be a fair price point for a really good barbell, I should say. So let me give you a quick story about a cheap bar. When I opened Untamed Strength, I found some guy on Craigslist who was selling barbells. He had a little tiny warehouse and he had some gym equipment there. It was all pretty cheap gym equipment, like home grade quality. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know what an expensive barbell was. And so I went there and he had some cheap barbells, probably like 80 bucks for each barbell. And I got a couple. And I remember when I was getting these bars, he said, yeah, they're good barbells. They're not Eleiko or anything. And I remember thinking in my head, what the hell is an Eleiko? And so I bought the barbells, thinking it's a bar. What's the difference? And later on, my brother was working out with me, and he was doing cleans. He was doing cleans with 2 plates and something else, like 2 plates and a quarter, probably 275. And he did a clean. He caught it, and he stood up, and the weight slid off the bar, and the bar catapulted in the air. Thankfully, he pulled his head out of the way and didn't hit him in the face, but it flew and hit the ground, and it scared both of us. So we were like, what the hell happened? And I told him, I said, why aren't you using collars, dude? And I went and looked at the plates on the ground, and the collar was still on, and so was the sleeve. The sleeve was inserted into the bar, and the collars were on. The sleeve had completely come off the shaft of the barbell. And at the end of that barbell, it's just fastened on by a bolt, just a hex, a threaded bolt that requires a hex key to tighten. The bolt was stripped, and or it just comes loose over time. And so at that point, I was like, maybe there's something to this, why barbells are a couple $100 more, a couple $100 difference here. And then when I went to my first powerlifting meet, I had never used a good barbell. So I went into this powerlifting meet and I was going for the squat. It was a squat bar, so it was thicker than a normal diameter bar, and it had really aggressive knurling, and it had center knurling. So I went up to the bar, and I remember looking at the center knurling, and it kind of threw me off. I'm like, whoa. And then I went and put my hands on the bar, and for 1 second, I'm like, oh, this is nice. So that's my exposure to good barbells. Now, another story about a barbell. Once I finally found out that, oh, there's actually good barbells, one of the members, a member named Bob, had purchased a barbell for Untamed Strength Gym at the first location. And that was when I knew, okay, good barbells, I can tell the difference now. So I had bought a barbell, an Ohio Power Bar for the gym, another one. And this was in 2015, so it was my second location. Didn't have many members at all. But this guy comes walking in, he's wearing a tracksuit. He's got two women behind him, walking behind him. I'm like, who is this guy? And he comes in and he just asks if he can take a look at my barbells. I think he asked, do you have a power bar? And I was like, matter of fact, I do. Check it out. This like new, power bar without any chalk on it yet. And he grabs it and he feels it and he goes, I'd like to sign up for all three of us. He was a powerlifting coach for these two women. And I'm like, dang, this barbell is already paying for itself. So that's when I was kind of hooked on good barbells, and they do sell memberships in my case. Number 3, a belt squat machine. A gym that has this machine understands strength training. When I see a belt squat in a gym, I think whoever is the manager or whoever's in charge of this stuff has done their homework. A belt squat can be a great way to get more leg volume in for powerlifters who are already doing back squats and heavy deadlifts, or a strongman competitor who is doing plenty of heavy squats and deadlifts and lots of heavy hinging and carrying. You could get some more volume in doing this belt squat. Since the belt is on your hips, your back gets a break. But it's not just for serious strength athletes. This machine allows someone to squat while almost eliminating the need for balance, spine, shoulder, and lower body mobility that's required for a barbell back squat. This one you see in the video is a Rogue belt squat, which is a great machine. You can squat, you can deadlift, you can hinge, you can row the cable. The only adjustment that needs to be made to this Rogue belt squat is short people. You've got to stand on blocks in order to get full range of motion because of the cable length. You'll just bottom out and hit the bottom unless you're standing up on something to make yourself taller. I've also used the SquatMax MD, which I kind of like the feeling of better. It's a pin-loaded belt squat, so you don't have as much freedom as you do with a cable. The cable, you can kind of like cheat by squirming around and leaning back or pushing your hips up or leaning forward. You kind of just, there's a little too much range of motion, or freedom of motion, I should say. But the rail, you have to squat up and down. The balance feels a little more like a barbell squat. So I like it. It's a little bit different, but I kind of like the pin-loaded squat. However, if you're not using it just for yourself in your garage gym, if you're making it for a large population of people in a more of a public gym atmosphere, it has its limitations. People that are short, like, I don't know, under 5'4", you're gonna bottom out and hit early unless you stand up on the extender. And then if you're like probably over 6'1", 6'2", or you just have really, really long legs, you're gonna stand all the way up and the rail is gonna wanna slide, or the pin that the weight is on is gonna wanna slide off the rail. So it's kind of tough in that sense. I've also used a Pitch Shark, which does feel good, feels like a fine squat, but the leverages on it seem to be off because you have to load a ton of 45s on there in order to get a good weight, a good working weight. You'd load way more 45s on that thing than you would load on a barbell if you were doing back squats. Whereas a belt squat, if you're doing like 4 plates on a squat, you're probably gonna use like 4 plates on a belt squat. It's pretty close. There are plenty of belt squat rack attachments, but personally, if I got a public gym, I don't like a bunch of things you have to set up. I just like a standalone belt squat. I think it really makes you stand out as a gym. Number 4, GHD. Is it GHD or is it GHR? That is the question. So I think, pretty sure that GHD is the machine. It's a glute ham developer. GHR is the exercise. It's a glute ham raise. I don't ever say GHR. I would just say do back extensions or do hamstring curls, or a combination of both of those. This machine is like is pretty much the pull-up bar for lower body. You can do back raises, hamstring curls, and sit-ups. Those are the most common exercises done on a GHD. I'll do weighted back extensions, single leg back extensions, Nordic curls with band assistance, sit-ups with lots of spinal extension, sit-ups with less spinal extension, weighted sit-ups. And this machine, believe it or not, is not very common in commercial gyms, at least in my experience. And I think it's because commercial gyms aren't really set up for exercises where you use your body weight as resistance. They'd rather you just sit on a machine, sit still, isolate one joint at a time because that's safer, I guess. Commercial gyms don't want people hanging upside down for liability reasons. And back extensions, hamstring curls, GHD sit-ups are all really hard and really uncomfortable, so maybe not that popular for general population, but they've been brutally effective exercises for like the past century. And number 5, SSB, a safety squat bar. This is the most used specialty bar at my gym. This bar allows you to squat with an injured hand, wrist, or shoulder. This bar gives your sore shoulders a break if your pressing volume is high and you still need to squat. This bar can improve upper back strength required for squatting max weights with a barbell. Members with physical limitations need this bar to squat. Older folks who can't lift their arms past their shoulder need this bar to squat. I would say that the Elite FTS SSB is the best SSB that I've used. The design and the durable pad make it better than any other brand that I've used. I know that there are other companies who have made comparable bars, but I can't speak on the quality of the pad for some of those. I know that some brands go cheap on the pad, and we burn through those pads like a puppy in his chew toy. So an SSB is a great option for strength athletes, recreational lifters, elderly folks, and people with flexibility or mobility limitations. Thanks for watching, and always remember, trend on time!